Celtics Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's up, everyone? Welcome in. It's an off-season edition to Celtics Beat. That's what these are going to be for a little while here because, unfortunately, it's off-season for everybody, so unfortunately it just stinks that there's no basketball. I guess this would be our first show since the end of the NBA Finals, so it is truly an off-season show, but it's going to be this way for a little while now, but at least we have Summer League and things like that around the corner to get kind of hyped up about. I don't know how much we'll touch on that during this particular show, but there's a lot going on for people that have not been paying much attention, so we'll bring you up to speed and look ahead and forecast what's up for the Boston Celtics. I'm Adam Kaufman and Valenti. We're always here, but Gary Washburn is here with us. Of course, you know him from the Boston Globe. You know him from his many media appearances and many stops on this show. And of course, as part of the CLNS family, the A-List podcast with Kwani and Sherrod as well. Gary, how are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. You getting amped up for Father's Day?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I was going to say, Gary, you're on everybody's podcast at this point. I hope you're getting a paycheck from Gelso and Giannis and everybody at this point. Yeah. It seems like you're on everybody's at this point. You're in demand, Gary. You can't help it.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's cool. It's always good to be in demand.
Listen, we get excited. We love to have you.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Trust me. It's an honor and a privilege, Gary, to have you on the show. Trust me.
No, I don't think I'm probably at the top of your list. You guys got a lot of pretty star-studded guests, so
here's what it is, and I hope you've picked up on this pattern. So we have I would say we don't go in a specific order or anything like that, but a general rotation of however many people it is that we love to have on. And obviously you are a part of that group, and deliberately I try not to bug any guest more than once every couple months, because I don't want you to get tired of coming on with us. And because this is a time commitment we ask from you, especially. I mean, we're, for anyone that doesn't know, that's obviously no one's listening in real time as we record this. It's a Saturday night. You probably have better things to do, but you're taking some time out of your schedule for us, and we greatly appreciate that.
No problem. It's Saturday. It's storming. Not it's not an action-packed night for me. So
it's fair.
No Yankee socks.
Neither of us either. So it's a shocker here.
No Yankees and socks. So I was going to.
Right now, you got the Revs. You could be watching the Revolution.
Are they playing on the road or something?
They're in Foxborough.
Wow, and they're
playing through this mess. Yeah, my kids are in the other room watching.
Impressive. Okay, I did not know that.
It's a sparse crowd.
I could imagine that Gillette isn't full with 75,000 for a mid-season MLS game in the rain. Yeah,
a downpour. So where I want to begin, it's we'll get to the Celtics and the NBA and all of that stuff, but just sort of a bigger picture thing. And I asked this not as an organizational question, because that's a very easy answer. As a fan, which I don't presume you to be. We've talked about that, actually, the teams that you genuinely root for versus those obviously that you cover, but a fan's mentality, if you will, with this question. So we had Denver win the NBA title in a rout, as I expected. We had the Vegas Golden Knights, Bruce Cassidy's Vegas Golden Knights, win the title, the Stanley Cup, in a rout. And the two, Cinderella seasons, the 8 seeds from South Florida, the Panthers who knocked out the Bruins in round 1, and of course the Heat who knocked out the Celtics in the conference finals, they both go down. You go from a potential double parade that many of us around here joked about for months and never came close to, versus that area that very realistically could have had it and fell short and had, not only didn't have 2 parades, had 0 parades. As a fan, which is sort of less painful? Is it kind of not better, because you never want to see your team lose, but is it easier to have seen the Bruins go down in round 1, albeit blown a 3-1 lead after an historic season? Celtics fall short of the NBA Finals, sucked. They forced a Game 7, didn't get there though. And as opposed to if they'd both made the final round and lost, both of them. As hard as it was seeing them go down, Gary, both of them, I can't fathom what kind of state people around here would be in, myself included, if both those teams, Cup final, NBA Finals, and both fell short.
Well, if you're comparing it to like Florida or Miami area, like I think
they don't even care.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, but also they were both like lower seeds, both had to climb into the playoffs. They both were not favored. So I think there's a sense of like accomplishment there with the Heat and the Panthers that wouldn't have been with the Bruins and the Celtics because making it there just wasn't good enough. So I think it's a little different. I do think that, I don't think the Heat I don't think Heat faithful were like, yeah, we got this series against Denver. I think they knew eventually that they were going to level off and their luck was going to run out and their good fortune and some of the things that they did so well against the Celtics were just not going to continue against the Nuggets. And I'm not sure like how the Panthers felt about their series with the Golden Knights. I mean, Vegas looked like the better team throughout the series. Florida won on a kind of a last, how they beat the Bruins, a last minute goal when they pulled their goalie and then they won in overtime and then Chuck got hurt. So they were just not any good after that. But I think if the Celtics and the Bruins are both lost in the cup in the finals, yeah, there'd be a collective like depression. I mean, even like, I don't know how successful that Patriots fans consider seasons when they lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl or the Giants, especially the undefeated season. The 2 losses to the Giants. I don't know how people I don't know how Patriots fans view those seasons. Is it a success because you made the Super Bowl? Are you still lamenting losing to Nick Foles and some of the bad play calling, and I think, Tom Brady's wasn't as sharp, like all the things that went on in the Super Bowl. I think we tend as fans to break down and to harp on the negative, regardless of the teams we root for. And we break down the little things and we don't appreciate the journey. I think in Florida, they probably are more appreciating the journey. Like, like they're doing a damn documentary on the 03-04 Nets or 02-03 Nets. I'm sorry, because they went to back-to-back finals and they got smashed both times by the Spurs and the Lakers, but it was still like the unheralded team that makes the finals, kind of overcomes adversity and brings the first, NBA finals to New Jersey and all that. So, sometimes those guys get documentaries. So maybe the Panthers or the Heat will get some kind of 30 for 30 on this, just the journey.
Will.
I don't think they will do a 30 for 30. They would have done a 30 for 30 on the Bruins or the Celtics if they had lost in the finals. I think people would have been disappointed. So I just think that's how you have to look at it. I think it's a collective, like when you're favored and you don't make it, there's a collective like, what the hell happened? Like, did the Celtics have a good season? I think it's a honest question for the fans. Like, did the Celtics have a successful season? The answer would probably be no. It'd probably be 70-30 no. I don't know. If you want to get back to the finals, now if they had lost in Denver at 6, it would have been, I think, pretty good. But the fact that just what happened in that Miami series, the drama of the playoffs, having to rally to beat Philadelphia, all of what happened. No, I don't think it was a successful season, especially when you have the unfinished business theme and you didn't even get back to the finals. And the script of you getting back to the finals, the chorus was no Knicks, Philadelphia out Joel Embiid for a couple of games, 7-seeded, I'll call them 7-seed because they were the 7th best record in the league in the East. 7-seeded Miami, and you didn't do it. So no, I don't think it was a successful season. But I think if you ask Miami, you ask Florida, hey, we had a really good season. That was a good season. I think there'll be some celebratory situations there. But for the Bruins, especially, you blow a 3-1 lead, you lose. Then they lose. They lost Game 5 in overtime. Or whatever. They lost Game 5 straight up, and they lost Game 7 in overtime, right?
Yeah.
7 in overtime, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's brutal. That's brutal. Blow a 3-1 lead, a team that they were obviously seemingly better than, and then when I saw people were like, well, I didn't like the way this series was going from the beginning, but they were up 3-1. I don't know all the hockey specifics of like who should have been on the first line, the second line, all that stuff. I'm still looking for Tuukka Rask. I'm like, oh, he's not on the Bruins anymore.
Just gonna blame Tuukka, like your
colleague. Where's Tim Thomas?
Paul always says it's Tuukka's fault.
Yeah, I thought Tim Thomas still there. No, I'm being funny, but
so with the Celtics, and obviously, like you mentioned, the unfinished business theme, and you got to find a way to creatively get the 18 in there, like they did. So maybe next year it's like still unfinished or something like that.
No, we can't go back anymore. That's it. You get to run that one time.
Yeah.
But so I mean, a Celtics adjacent question, if you will. This is very related to the Celtics. You covered the NBA Finals. Were you at every single game?
Yes.
Okay, so you and obviously you watch Denver up close. You talk to many members of that organization throughout the series, and I think that it's a weird way to put this. I don't know if you would agree with it, but I feel like for a long time, even despite winning 2 MVPs, Nikola Jokic was still very much underappreciated and just not really ever given his due for what a dominant player he is, even despite winning 2 MVPs. Like I think around the league for sure, but by fans, like they had to see this. They had to see it on a national stage. They had to see it in prime time. It had to be the only game on, for people to truly experience this. And as I've said before, the guy just he's at this point in his career. He's in these prime years now where he's so dominant, he's so good, he's so unique. He doesn't have a bad game ever. He may not have a triple-double. He may have a bad game, quote unquote, and still have a triple-double. He just impacts the game in so many positive ways, to where the thing that was missing, we've talked about this on this show a number of times, the thing that was missing during previous runs, while he was still incredible, was he didn't have a healthy cast of teammates around him. Murray goes down, or all the injuries they suffered last year, obviously. This is the first time they truly had a healthy group all the way through, and they did what they did. And I guess I wonder, and knowing full well that changes, however significant, are going to be made surrounding the Celtics this year, you watch what Denver did in the NBA Finals, Gary, and in my head, and Evan and I, we've texted a ton about this, is who over the next couple of years is beating this team? If they're healthy, who is going to beat the Nuggets?
Well, I mean, I didn't view them as unbeatable in the finals. I just thought that they were deep. They played cohesive, smart basketball. I thought the Celtics would have given them a better challenge than the Heat did.
Agreed.
I don't know if they would have won the series. Denver learned a lot from the Celtics Heat series. Like, they did their scouting, and that was apparent. Like, they chased Miami shooters off the three-point line. They made a definitive decision that we're going to let Bam Adebayo feast. Okay, like if he goes 25-13, that's fine, but we're cutting off everybody else. And with Jimmy Butler, the scouting report was like, don't go for his pump fakes. And they didn't, right? They didn't send him to the line 12 times. They didn't fall for all that, the shenanigans. And I'm not saying in a negative way, but just the Jimmy experience that the Celtics just fell for, and they also defended better. I don't look at Denver and thinking to them, like, wow, this is a dynasty in the making. Like, not necessarily. Now, I love Jokic. I think he got a lot of respect. Understandably, he should have, for his performance, and people. It was a pleasure to watch him for 5 games, just kind of in person, and see the mastery of his game and how he makes everything look so easy. But I didn't look at that roster and be like, wow, they're just stacked with just talent. Like, Jamal Murray's a good player. KCP is inconsistent. Michael Porter Jr. had a terrible series. Aaron Gordon does what Aaron Gordon does now. Bruce Brown, very good player off the bench. But I didn't look at them and be like, wow, like, man, the Celtics wouldn't have had a chance with these guys. We're not talking about like the 01 Lakers or, like the 86 Celtics here. We're not doing like I didn't feel that way about them. Like,
no, I mean, this is, and
I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to, they're going to have a tough time getting out of the West next year. Championship hangover, but I think they'll want it. I don't think that they'll come out like fat cats, but and kind of soft or anything like that, where they'll come off like, and just take the first 30 games off out of their championship glory. But I don't look at that team and be like, wow, like no one could have touched them this year. I think they played smarter, and look at the road to the finals. They played Minnesota, it's a mess. They played Phoenix without Chris Paul, and they played the 7-seeded Lakers. Memphis had its issues, didn't make it through. Sacramento lost to Golden State. Golden State lost to the Lakers. So there was no great teams, and the Clippers were just, the Clippers were just a mess. They couldn't stay healthy with Kawhi and Paul George. So all the teams that were hyped in the West, like the Warriors, they just didn't have a good season. The Clippers injured. The Grizzlies just a mess with the Morant stuff and Dylan Brooks, and they just weren't ready. They weren't mature enough. The Lakers just didn't have enough depth. Like LeBron's not great enough anymore to carry a team. AD checked in and out in the Denver series. They just weren't good enough. So if you look at it, Denver's road was almost as like paved as the Celtics was, right? You play an 8th seed, a 4th seed, and a 7th seed. 2, 3, 5 are all out. So I think that Denver will be a definite contender next year, but I don't think the West is like, wow, we can't beat these guys. Like, I don't think this is like the 15 Warriors we're starting to see here. I don't see that, but I see a team that's going to be definitely another contender next year. One of the favorites, I thought they were a good club, but people were saying like they just were entertained by the finals because Denver is a good team, not a great team. But there were no great teams in the league this year. They just weren't.
Yeah, I think that and this part, I was starting to say this before, this part isn't revisionist history, because when we were doing our finals preview, I said to Ev, I said on this show that, I did, like you're saying, I thought the Celtics would put up more of a fight, but I did think going into that series, in the hypothetical matchup, Denver would have won. I think Denver would have come out on top. And maybe, maybe I'm overstating my sort of respect for what we just saw, but I think that is in large part just because I have such an enormous admiration for Jokic. I just think that this guy, like when he has 4 assists, but it's like, he wasn't passing the balls effectively as he normally does. Yeah, but he had 41 points. The guy just,
it's not like he's not passing the ball around. Like he's
it's not hitting the shots. Like he's just, I just think Ev, he's
the
so
Celtics matchup, hypothetically, you'd have to look at like the Celtics probably were not prepared for the Nuggets. Like, and what I mean by that is that they would have had the first 2 games at home.
Yeah.
Like, I think any of us would bet our house that Denver would have won one of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just would have, they would have literally come into game 1 and probably just completely beat an unprepared Celtics team 100%. coming off a game 7 win over Miami.
Yep.
Because game 7 was on a Monday, game 1 would have been on a Thursday. They probably have taken Tuesday off, 1 day of practice, which is the media day practice, which is not a hard practice. It's just, and then all of a sudden they're sprung in to playing Denver with 10 days. The Nuggets had 10 days off, and we're scouting Boston, and probably we're preparing to play Boston entering that game 7. So it would have been, I would have been stunned if Denver didn't at least win 1 in Boston, and then now you're talking about the Celtics got to sneak 1 in Denver, and then now I'm not saying they would have gotten spanked, but like I don't know if the Celtics were prepared or mature enough to deal with Denver coming off that series. Now, if they had taken care of Miami in 5 or 6, different story. But winning an emotional, quote unquote, hypothetically, game 7, the city is on fire, coming back from an 0-3 deficit and all that. And then here you go with a well-prepared, well-coached team. And, I don't know. I didn't have a lot of faith that the Celtics would have done what they were supposed to do, because they didn't do it all the whole playoffs. They lost at home to Atlanta. They lost at home twice to Philadelphia. They lost in Boston 3 times to Miami. I mean, that's just brutal. It's unacceptable. So you mean to tell me they're going to beat Denver 2 to 3 times in Boston? No. So they're going to win twice in Denver? Probably, maybe, because they're a better road team. So,
Denver's an excellent home. They were awesome at home this year.
Yeah, I just don't think
the playoffs at home this year.
Yeah, they lost once, the Miami game, where they had a bad fourth quarter. But I tend to think that the Celtics weren't prepared enough, this team mentally, to hang with the Nuggets for a 7-game series. I just don't think that they were prepared.
Yeah, Adam, quick break to tell you today's show is powered by FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet from us at CLNS Media up to $1,000. Again, that's $1,000 back in bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to join today. Now, we've been talking about same-game parlays pretty much ever since we started doing our FanDuel reads, since FanDuel humbly has sponsored this particular program. And I got to tell you, baseball, look, when you follow basketball as closely as I do, something's got to take a little bit of a back seat. Baseball is the one. However, whatever you do, this is my advice, right? Whatever you do during this baseball season, when it comes to SGP, a same game parlay, just throw Luis Ariz in there to get a hit that day. Luis Ariz hitting .388 so far this year for the Marlins, okay? .388. It's very, 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 very likely this guy is going to get on base in some capacity every single day with the way that he is hitting the baseball so far this season. I know it's hard with baseball. Things can be crazy. As of this recording, look, he went 5 for 5 in the game prior. Now, he went 0 for 3 straight games. But I'm telling you, you're going to win more than you lose as long as you have this guy as a part of your same game parlay. Of course, FanDuel has more things than just baseball. They have tennis, they have golf, they have the WNBA, the NFL, the NBA drafts coming up. All that and more can be found at FanDuel. So make sure you get in on the action right now. Get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today, thanks to us at CLNS Media. Just go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. One of the things that have been kind of just thrown around to, whether it's the internet or people I just talk to on a daily basis, is, and it's hard because Nikola Jokic is just unbelievably good at basketball, right? But you look at him, you look at Curry the year prior, you look at Giannis the year prior, and it's obviously more complicated than star player leads said team to NBA Finals and NBA title. But when you look back on the last 3 titles, Giannis's 50-point game set, or was it game 6, comes up where he eliminates the Phoenix Suns with an all-timer. Curry's 40-point whatever game 4 against Boston that flipped the script. And you look at Jokic pretty much the entire series against Miami. And I look at the Celtics team and I say, all right, obviously Jason Tatum is the Celtics' best player. Gary, do you believe that at some point in Tatum's life, he is capable of a run like the last 3 championships we've seen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I think Tatum has to literally go into next year. I don't know how Tatum feels about this year that just completed. Does he say to himself, I had a good year, we just didn't make it, but it wasn't my fault? Or does he think to himself, man, I got to be top 5, top 3 Tatum next year. And I wasn't that guy this year. I got to be, like I've said in another podcast, Tatum has to go in and to this year coming up and being this is my MVP year. This is my year. Like Jokic has won it, Embiid finally won it, Giannis has won it. Who's next? Okay, who's next? It's me. That's what Tatum has to say to himself. And I'm not, and I know, like, of course, he wants to win MVPs. He wants to do all the personal accomplishments, but I think he has to connect that me being the best player in the league makes us one of the best teams in the league and probably makes us a favorite to get back to the finals. So if I'm Tatum, get all your rest that ankle, rest that wrist, get back in the lab. I don't think he's playing USA basketball this year. And make yourself the best player in the league. Like, this is your year. That's what I think his attitude should be. Like, no more excuses. I'm not young anymore. I'll be 26 next year. Mm-hmm. It's time for me to be
stars break through too. Is like 20. Like Curry broke through at 26. That's the year.
It's time for me to be more consistent. None of these 3 for 19 games. Or like he's gonna have bad shooting nights, but none of that goes on. Like I gotta carry these guys. And I get it. Like in game 7, he sprained his ankle the first play of the game. Mm-hmm. It was a bad luck situation. He wasn't himself. I'm not blaming him for game 7, but Jason's got to be a level or 2 up now. This is your time, Jason. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, you've elevated yourself to a top 10 player. Top 5 is debatable. If you want to, depend on health or whatever, would you put him in over Damian Lillard? Would you put him in over guys? Would you say he's better at this point than Steph? Because the top 3, you would say Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis. And then, would you put him in over Donovan Mitchell? Would you put him in over Curry? Would you put him in, who would you, like, where would you rank Jason? Some people probably say 4. Some people probably say 7. Some probably might say 10, right? Jason's got to be like, no, I'm top 3. Or number 1. This is my year. Everybody else had their success. Giannis got MVPs. Jokic's got 2s, MVPs. Even Embiid now. Embiid is coming off an MVP season. Where's mine at? And he can't blame the media for not voting. Like, he's got to convince the media, convince the NBA fan base that I'm the best MF in the league. Every night I'm best dude on the floor. So I don't know what Jason needs to do this summer. I think it's good. Get him some rest, hanging out with Deuce. That's great. It's only June. But July 1 or whatever, get back to the lab and figure out what they want from you, how they're going to change the offense, because I would assume they're going to change this offense and adjust this offense to where it gets, he moves more and he's more of a playmaker and he's coming off screens more and he's doing a little bit more, doing more with less, maybe taking the ball out of his hands a little bit and making it easier on him to where, like, okay, this is my year. Like, I'm owning this. Like, I didn't step up and bring us to the finals. It's time that I do that. That's where I think Jason needs to approach this year. If he approaches it like, well, I'm top 10, I'm good, that's a little discouraging. I don't think he'll do that. I think Jason's a dog. And I think Jason wants to be great for many reasons, personal, professional, team-wise. I think he wants obviously, zero is going to be raised in the rafters. He's going to try to chase Havlicek's all-time Celtics scoring record. He's on the cusp of 10,000 points for his career. I think he'll get that in the first 2 or 3 games. A lot for Jason to accomplish, but I think a championship and an MVP is what's eluded him.
So for a couple of years, we've talked about this team like this, it's the Jays team, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. In reality, and I say this with all due respect to Jaylen Brown, who had, not a great playoff run, but a phenomenal regular season, all NBA second team, put himself in position for the Supermax, all of it. But this is Jason Tatum's team. Like, Tatum is the guy who we know they are building around. He is not going anywhere. He is not going to hear his name in any trade rumors. Jaylen Brown, obviously, already, like, season's over, and it's man, could they deal him for? Is he going to be involved in a Bradley Beal trade? Is he going to be involved in a Damian Lillard trade? Is he going to, what would a Chris Paul package look like? All of these different things, to where, kind of going back to something you were just talking about in terms of breaking through and age and all of that. Generally, it's not a rule of thumb, but generally speaking, name any all-time great you want. Most of these guys, at least over the last 30, 40 years, when they win their first title, they're 27, 28, 29. Usually it takes a little while. And people hear that, and this is like, mainstream media kind of thing, and most mainstream media kind of annoys me at this point anyway, but especially as it relates to the Celtics. But that'll quickly be met with, I'm so sick of hearing how young they are. It's a terrible excuse. I take it from entirely, Gary, the opposite side. I don't view it as an excuse at all. I view it as an advantage. The fact that they have gone on as many deep playoff runs, this core, as they have, that they have as much experience as they have, and the fact that they are young, just as a matter of fact, not an excuse, not a reason they haven't won, just a fact. Tatum is 25. Brown is 26. These guys, if you keep them together, and I take Brad Stevens at his word, I believe they will. If you keep them together, at least for the next year or two, they are just entering their prime years. So you can change up the core. You can, like the greater core, you can talk about, like, there's already is Malcolm Brogdon on the move? Sure. I mean, do it. But you start to, like, Marcus Smart. Yeah, you could entertain that. Rob Williams, maybe you could entertain that. But in terms of the Jays specifically, with age on their side, do you believe these are two guys, not one, not Tatum, two guys that you continue to build around at this point versus soliciting another all-star or former superstar elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that. I mean, I think that, it's getting to the time, I just think their window is now, right? Like, I don't think the 2 to 3 year where Jason is pushing 29, 30, and like, it's got to get done now. Like, the league is evolving, and right now the Warriors are getting old, the Lakers are getting old, but the old guard, the guys who were like drafted in the late, LeBron's a whole exception, 03, but the guys who were drafted in 08, 09, the Durants, the Currys, the Hardens, the Russ Westbrooks, like, they're getting older, okay? Their time is shifting, and there's a hole there with guys who have stepped up. Giannis has stepped up. Jokic has stepped up. But there's the dynasty and the great teams are we're in a parity mode now. And so the Celtics have a chance to capitalize. They have built intelligently a very good club, drafting Jason and Jalen, drafting Marcus, trading for Derek White, even Malcolm, re-signing Horford, drafting Robert Williams, drafting Grant Williams, drafting Peyton Pritchard. Like, they have mostly a homegrown team. And to me, you got to take the next step. And I think the thing they can learn from the Nuggets is Mike Malone's didn't make the team. The Nuggets didn't make the playoffs in Mike Malone's first 3 years. Like, they were just this, like, no, Denver's never going to do it. Like, and kind of how people are starting to kind of talk about the Celtics now, but Denver's never going to do it. Remember last year they lost in the first round to Golden State. That was without Murray. They lost in 5 to Golden State in the first round. And people were like, this guy's the MVP. He can't even lead. Like, they can't even push the Warriors to 6 or 7 games. What? Mm-hmm. Remember, what I'm saying? So I think the time for the Celtics is now. There's changes going on in Milwaukee. Chris Middleton's getting older. Brook Lopez, a free agent. Who knows? Brand new coach with Nick Nurse in Philadelphia. Who knows what's going to happen with James Harden? The Celtics' time is now. So you could say, Adam, I get the whole, like, oh, we got 3 to 4 more years. Like, you really think for we'll wait 3-4 more years? They've been to 5 Eastern Conference Finals. Like, how many times can you go to the Eastern Conference Finals? And I get it. but this ain't the NCAA. This ain't like making the Final Four. Tom Izzo, Hall of Fame coach, won national championship like 48 Final Fours. Same with Jim Boeheim.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Be careful.
Like,
We know. No, but that's the question.
But on his resume, Boeheim's going to have 10 Final Fours. I get it, one chip, but 10 Final Fours. 10 Final Fours. Like that's a tip your cap. That's a great thing. But nobody cares about the Final Four in the NBA. So
that's
you got to get over
my point. It's how much do you change up the core around those two guys specifically?
Yeah, you can build. No, you've got the building blocks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen's got to get back to the lab, as we know. Jalen's got to improve his handle, as we know. Jalen's got to get his game up. But I think it's a definite situation now where there's a 1 and 1A, or 1A, 1B, however you want to refer to Jason and Jalen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's Jason's team, as you said. He's going to get unquestionably $318 million next year. Okay, but what you have to do is you can't let these moments like this year slip away. This can't happen again. Like, this cannot happen anymore. You cannot lose to a 7th or 8th seed. You can't fall behind 0-3. You can't give up in game 3. You can't have no freaking idea what defense you're playing or how to handle a zone. You can't have your 6'11 big man, 6'10 big man pass up 6-footers and not even look at the basket. You need someone who's going to take one dribble, one step, and dunk on somebody. Like, you got to make those reinforcements. And so you look at the league, and that's why I think it's all dependent. You can build around Jason and Jalen all you want. If you have that three-pointer die philosophy, what's New Hampshire's slogan? Live free or die.
Yeah.
Celtics is hit threes or die.
They died.
If you haven't put that in an article yet, it's time.
So Celtics should be playing in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
we should play a couple of games in Nashua or something.
Yeah, play some preseason in Manchester.
Exactly.
They've done that in the past.
Hit threes or die. So, like, if you get away from that philosophy, which you need to, because Denver shot 33% from the threes in the series against Miami. 33%. Like, they were bad. And they still won 3 of the 4 games by double digits.
Yeah.
Like, right? I mean, they didn't need a 3. So it's all about building around Jason and Jalen, but it's also a offense that's conducive to their strengths. Someone who can hit a point guard who can hit a mid-range jumper off the pick and roll. Like,
so on that note, we just in the interest of time, we could do the whole, dissect Damian Lillard's IG live or talk about Chris Paul. Will he go back to Phoenix, or is he going to, Bradley Beal, who were the finalists? And there was a report out earlier today. Boston wasn't mentioned. Just cutting to the chase of it all, Gary. Is Boston bringing in another, and like any big name this offseason, or are we cleaning up around the perimeters, if you will?
Well, they're not trading Jalen. Okay. I think they could move Marcus, Brock, or Malcolm. Okay. I think they realize point guard is an issue, and it's not Marcus's fault. I'm not putting this on Marcus. It's just they've got to have a cohesive offense in the fourth quarter. Because to me, fourth quarter offense cost them games 1 and 2 against Miami. Right? Even that 46-point third quarter, they had a chance to win game 1, and they blew it. Game 2, Miami took their lunch money again like they did in the bubble, right? Game 3, they gave up. They have to have somebody put Jason and Jalen in positions to succeed. Jason and Jalen can't always be going 1-on-5 and trying to get to the rack. Like, they've got to score easier buckets. So I think they'll decide what can we sacrifice? Okay. Do we need kind of a microwave kind of guy like Malcolm? Do we need Marcus? Can we have Marcus adjust positions? They're going to have, the egos are going to be affected here. Like, I just don't think you could just run it back. and think, oh, we got Gallinari now, he's in, so we're good. Like, as much as I think Gallinari will help, I think that they're going to have to probably make a difficult decision. To me, I think they should go after Chris Paul if possible. Now, you don't give up Jalen, you don't give up but if you have to give up Malcolm, and then you give Chris Paul the Al Horford plan, we're going to play you 28 to 30 minutes a game. We're going to limit your back-to-backs. We're going to get you and your legs ready for the playoffs. We ain't having no more playoff injuries. Like, you're not going to wear yourself out, on a Thursday night against Minnesota. Like, we are going to prepare you to run this offense in the playoffs, to tell Jason and Jalen where the hell they need to be, to come off a pick and roll and hit a jumper. The Celtics don't have a guard who can hit a mid-range jumper. They don't. Like, it's Jason or Jalen. They've got to expand the mid-range game, and they need to get a big. Like, Al, I think, showed his age. Al stopped scoring in the paint. He's completely lost his post game. And Robert Williams never had a post game. And with Robert Williams, he's got, like, people talk about Jalen. Robert's got to take a bigger step. Robert's got to go. I don't know if you call Akeem Olajuwon, Patrick, I don't care who you call. Go to someone's 2-week or 3-week camp and learn some damn post moves. Learn to hit a jumper. If you look at Adebayo, look at all what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Handles the ball, can breach you off the dribble, can hit the short. Now, he's not super. He could be a better short jumper shooter. Like, he missed some chippies, he missed some bunnies. But he just is so versatile. And that just makes him hard to guard. And Robert is more like, if you're not throwing him a lob, offensively, what does he bring? And you need someone to hit 2-point shots. Like, you got to have layups. Denver showed that. If you score at the rim or you hit the mid-range, you can beat teams like you can beat the zone. You can beat teams like Miami. Denver shot 33% from the three in the series. If they shot 40, they would have obviously swept, but they didn't rely on the three. And I think the Celtics have to look at the live three or die philosophy that Mazzulla said, let's get up 50 a game. Like, what, 50?
Yeah.
And what were they, 16 for 77 in games 6 and 7 against Miami? Like, that cost you the series.
Should have lost in 6. If it weren't for Derek White being awesome.
But they hit a lot of 2-pointers. But, Evan, like, they won that game because they hit a lot of 2-pointers.
Including the last one.
In that game. They scored, they scored at the rim. Like, they did what you're supposed to do. Right. But in game 7, Marcus Smart's taking 3 steps back for a step back 3 off the like and the fact is that I don't know, and we'll see what happens with the inclusion of Sam Cassell and Charles Lee.
Mm-hmm.
But the Celtics got to have roles. If you guys looked at Nuggets, everybody in the Nuggets had a damn role.
Yep.
Like, except Michael Porter Jr. was the only one that was kind of a, like, as soon as I get the ball, I'm putting it up. Everybody else has a role. Miami, they all had roles. Duncan Robinson is not trying to do too much. Max Strus is taking threes. Like, Marcus is allowed to do whatever he wants. Jason can do what he wants, and maybe Jalen. The rest of them have to have roles. And you have to establish those roles. This is what we do, and this is what we do well. We're not having Al chuck 9 3-pointers and go 1 for 9. Like, get your ass in the paint and score a couple of buckets. Get a dunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that they've become so reliant on the 3 that, like, everybody's a 3-point shooter, and everybody isn't. And that's the problem. When you're off, you're off. And what it's supposed to stay in the huddle during the series, like, if they're not shooting 3-pointers, isn't that what he said? When he's mic'd up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just, like, basically the Celtics, if they ain't shooting threes, then they're basically,
Yeah, he basically said just limit their 3-point shots. They won't win the game. And it was like 1 or 2. He said that. It was really, really early in the series.
Early in the series. So they need to change the philosophy. And Jason and Jalen need a better coaching in terms of putting them in positions to succeed. Like Jalen can't be, unless he improves his handle, dependent on the dribble drive through 5 guys to the basket. That's not his game yet. Maybe it will be, but they got to put him in the post. Run some pick and rolls with Jason and Jalen. Have them throw assists to each other. They have someone on the floor, and I appreciate Marcus's playmaking. But there's Marcus playmaker, and there's Marcus, I need to score. And I don't know I think Marcus's not the negative plays, the bad shots, the bad turnovers, the trick passes are starting to even out with the good stuff. This year, I think it did. Last year, I think he had a tremendous season. Yeah. This year, some of those things, the foul against Trae Young late in Game 5, like some of those things, it's just like,
painful. Yeah, it's painful to watch when it's really bad.
Yeah, it's like I think those things are evening out. And either you do 2 things. You tell him you can move him, or you can say, Marcus, this is what you do.
Sam Cassell might be good for Marcus.
Yes, this is what you do. Yeah. No more trick passes. This is not the Harlem Globetrotters. We get it. It wows the crowd, but man, it's such a risky play. No high-risk plays. No more hero ball. So I think you can build around Jason and Jalen. I think the Celtics have to have a mental change, take every game seriously. No more losing at Washington to their backups, Denny Avdija and Corey Kispert. Like none of that BS. Show up to play every night, and you're not going to win every night, but show up to play every night. There's going to be some clunkers, but losing by 33 at Oklahoma City without Shai Gilgeous, no. Because you guys are like, I said this before, they won 57 games. We could go through the schedule and point out 10 more games they could have won.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
10 more.
Game 2.
Yeah. 10 more games. I'll give it to them. Like, they got their ass whipped at Golden State. Got their butts whipped at Chicago. There's nights you're just going to get your ass whipped, right? The 2 at Chicago. Okay? It's a bad matchup for them. The 2 home games against Orlando, you can put that on the list too. You know what I'm saying?
Overtime games against the Cavs early in the season.
Yeah, the 2 overtime games against the Cavs easily could have won. 4th quarter execution. A couple of those games against the Knicks. They lost 3 times to the Knicks. That last regular season game against Miami where Jason came down and when Joe didn't call a timeout. Like, there's so many games, and you're going to have tough losses, botched possessions, all that. But the Celtics had too many lackadaisical moments, and it spread into the playoffs. Game 5 against Atlanta, Game 1 against Philadelphia, Game 5 against Philadelphia. It's just it's up here, and it's been like that for years. This team has blown leads for years. We all know that. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's more of a mental thing than just like Jason and Jalen. I would trust that Jalen's gonna work, go to the lab and work on his skill set. I would trust the same thing with Jason. But I think they need a point guard and a more productive center and a better bench. To me, Brad did not help Joe at all. The Mike Muscala trade was a failure. Okay, we all admit that. I think after 2 weeks, they figured out he couldn't play. And I'm not saying he can't play, but he can't play in the rotation.
Yeah.
He thought he could replace Gallo's role. You had Luke Cornett just standing there. Whatever they did to, defending threes.
The Cornett contest.
Yeah. They had Peyton Pritchard. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but Joe obviously didn't trust him. Blake Griffin was a good locker room guy, but Joe didn't trust him to play him in the playoffs at all either. So you had a lot of guys on that team who just didn't have a purpose. And I don't know. Like, let's see what happens with J.D. Davidson. Maybe he makes a bid to take Peyton's spot. Like, I really like him. I think he's going to be someone to look out for. We'll see what happens in Summer League or whatever, right? But Brad didn't pad that bench. And, like, if you look at Denver, okay, DeAndre Jordan, Ish Smith. You ever seen Ish Smith and what he's done to the Celtics over the years? Like, Ish Smith, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, Ish Smith, like all these guys who didn't play. Like, Denver loaded their roster, loaded its roster with guys who could actually help them, even though they might not have played. Like, they were deep. And that's what I thought the Celtics were going to do. And it ended up that, like, and for whatever reason, Joe didn't trust Hauser in the playoffs. Hauser shot 41% from three in the regular season. Joe didn't play. Like, I don't know. Like, but I think it's part of that's on Brad. Like, add to the roster. You need to get some tough guys. Okay. No more soft stuff. No more letting Jimmy and those guys punk you. Get in somebody's face. Have a, scrap. It's got to be, I think, an attitude adjustment, but also Brad's got to get out of his comfort zone and stop bringing in nice guys. Stop bringing in guys that, why wouldn't they have signed, to me, why wouldn't you sign DeMarcus Cousins over Luke Cornett? Over Luke Cornett.
Fair. It's fair. Yeah, I mean, like, this is a tough guy.
Yeah.
It's like the floated trade for Isaiah Stewart. I'm just like, well, that guy at least is a tough guy. You don't want any part of Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, he's gonna chase LeBron around. But it's like,
there's a big man right there. I wouldn't fool around with that guy.
Exactly. Like, you need to get tougher. Like, and if it didn't work out with DeMarcus Cousins, then you sign him on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
for years, though. That's been your thing.
That's what you have to do.
9 guys, and if they don't work out, cut them. Like, just
go. That's what you have to do. Like, everybody can't be like Brad has this. Like, they've got to be this chemistry and culture. It's not working in terms of getting to the championship, winning the final. It's working getting the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's a bunch of nice guys on the team. It's just like Brad didn't help. Trade deadline deal was Mike Muscala. That was it. I mean, Milwaukee went after Jay Crowder. There was all these teams doing stuff. Who did Miami go after? Kevin Love. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, guys who can actually play. And I'm not saying, sign Kevin Love tomorrow. I'm just saying that's the type of moves that you have to take and chances you have to take in order to replenish your roster and have guys who can help you. And I just think this year, again, the Celtics had a bunch of guys who Joe didn't trust and didn't play.
Fair. Well, guys, I need to wrap it there, or I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. But I got to tell you, I do not feel better.
No, neither do I.
in any way, shape, or form.
The two assistant coaches is a good. Adam, the two assistant, that's a good start. We're not even a free agency yet, so. We're 2 weeks from free agency, so relax on the don't cry yourself to sleep yet.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I do think that I think Brad is adept enough to know what this team needs, and I think they'll enter next year with a different roster, not completely different, but an adjusted roster because he knows next year is the year. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to hear no more unfinished business. I don't want to hear no more talk. Just win games. Shut the hell up at Media Day. Yep, we're here to win games. I'm not talking about what we're about to do, what we're going to do. No. Bring on the first opponent. We're knocking them out. We're no more lackadaisical play. No more bad fourth quarters. If we get beat, we get beat on certain nights. But damn it, we're not going to lay down. We're not going to go through these stretches. We're not going to blow 28-point leads. None of that. If they should be upset. We'll see how upset they are. But I do think Brad will set them up better than they were this year.
Gary, just promise me when sometime in the next couple of weeks, when you're writing like the lead up to free agency article about, what should the Celtics do? What will they do? What do they have room to do? There will just be a passing line in there somewhere that says something to the effect of, hopefully they go out and sign a mean guy. They're too nice. We don't need, Boston bringing its preseason to Manchester with its live 3 or die offense.
Yeah,
that's the line that I'm looking for, and I can't wait to read it. Gary Washburn, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Really appreciate it. And happy Father's Day to both of your families as well. Hopefully it's a nice weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everyone out there, for watching, for listening, wherever you find your podcasts. If you watch on YouTube, we appreciate that. Rate, review, subscribe, all the great stuff we never tell you until the very end when you've probably tuned out by now anyway. But thank you very much, and we'll do it again next week as we get that much closer to not only Summer League, but, of course, the start of free agency.